What if one spoonful of jam was all it took to shatter a royal brand? A glistening, ruby-red spread scooped delicately from a glass jar bearing the gilded label of Meghan Markle's highly anticipated lifestyle brand, as ever. The segment was supposed to be lighthearted, a promotional tie-in during a morning show cooking segment featuring none other than the fiery culinary titan Gordon Ramsay. Cameras rolled, the jar was uncapped, the spoon dipped in, and in seconds, the entire facade of a brand meticulously curated over months came crashing down on live television. Before we continue, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What happened next wasn't a PR hiccup. It was a full-blown disaster. "This isn't jam," Gordon Ramsay said, after dramatically spitting it into a napkin. "It's oversweetened royal slop. My gran would be insulted by this garbage." The hosts froze, viewers gasped, and within minutes, social media platforms were engulfed in a firestorm of memes, hot takes, and brutal commentary. By the end of the day, royal slop was trending worldwide, the jam had been pulled from multiple retailers' shelves, and Meghan Markle's lifestyle empire, at least for the moment, had been reduced to a laughingstock. But this wasn't just about a jar of jam. This was about a clash of empires, one built on culinary discipline, brutal honesty, and decades of Michelin-starred credibility, and another built on carefully curated imagery, royal legacy, and Hollywood-style branding. When these worlds collided, it created a ripple effect far beyond one segment. What Gordon Ramsay said in under 30 seconds dismantled what Meghan Markle had spent months, arguably years, trying to build: a post-royal identity forged through a global lifestyle brand. And here's the kicker: it wasn't an offhand insult. Ramsay's comment struck a nerve because it exposed something deeper, something people had suspected for a long time but hadn't dared say aloud. Was the Duchess's brand all style and no substance? Was, as ever, just another celebrity cash grab wrapped in poetic buzzwords and faux sustainability? And how much of it was built on the borrowed prestige of a royal title no longer officially in use? In this video, we're diving into the scandal that erupted when Gordon Ramsay publicly humiliated Meghan Markle's debut product. We'll uncover what led to the jam's spectacular downfall, dissect the shocking on-air moment that went viral, examine the hidden tensions behind the scenes, and reveal how this single taste test might have derailed an entire brand before it could even find its footing. You'll hear from food scientists who analyzed the jam, PR strategists who witnessed the crisis unfold in real time, and even retail insiders who leaked why stores refused to restock the product. We'll explore Meghan's silent fury behind closed doors, the palace's eerie response, and what this moment means for the future of royal-adjacent brands trying to survive in a world that's increasingly allergic to inauthenticity. But before we jump into the meat of the story, it's crucial to understand what was at stake. As ever, wasn't just a brand. It was Meghan's comeback. After stepping away from royal duties, weathering tabloid wars, and navigating a series of public controversies from Oprah interviews to Netflix docuseries, Meghan sought to reinvent herself, not as a duchess or an actress, but as a global tastemaker. The lifestyle brand was supposed to be her clean slate, her curated world of minimalist elegance, female empowerment, and artisanal luxury. The jam wasn't just jam. It was the opening note in a symphony of products meant to redefine her legacy. And Gordon Ramsay's critique didn't just spoil the taste. It shattered the illusion. That's what makes this story so potent. This wasn't just a bad review. This was a cultural moment. A collision of celebrity branding, royal residue, and public fatigue with manufactured narratives. Ramsay didn't simply attack the taste. He ripped into the soul of the brand, questioning its authenticity, its craftsmanship, and ultimately its right to exist. So how did we get here? How did a spoonful of fruit spread become the most infamous bite of 2025? That's exactly what we're about to find out. From the kitchens of Buckingham Palace to the boardrooms of luxury retail, from the set of a morning show to the nerve center of Meghan's LA-based PR operation, this is the inside story of the jam scandal that shook a duchess, emboldened a chef, and revealed the cracks in one of the most hyped lifestyle brands of the decade. The moment was meant to be charming. It was a sunny Thursday morning on one of Britain's most-watched breakfast shows, a gentle mix of cooking demonstrations, celebrity interviews, and lifestyle chatter. The tone was light, the air was filled with the scent of croissants and coffee, and the studio was buzzing with quiet anticipation. On the roster for that day's special guest was Gordon Ramsay, world-renowned chef, television juggernaut, and known firebrand whose temper was rivaled only by his unparalleled culinary expertise. Producers wanted a fun segment. Nothing heavy, nothing controversial. Just a bit of banter between Ramsay and the morning hosts, a brief cooking demonstration, and the real hook, a celebrity taste test. They had lined up a trio of trending artisanal products to sample live on air, one of which had just launched with significant fanfare, a jar of strawberry and lavender jam from Meghan Markle's newly unveiled lifestyle brand. As ever, to the untrained eye, it was just another branded product placement. But to the network, this was a prime marketing moment. As ever, had been teasing its debut for weeks. Lifestyle blogs and celebrity influencers were already posting pictures of the pristine white jar with its minimalist gold label. Meghan's followers were describing the jam in poetic terms, delicate notes of heirloom strawberries, crafted with botanicals from Montecito Gardens, infused with serenity. This segment would serve as a free endorsement. Or so they thought. The camera panned in slowly as a production assistant carefully set the 3 jars before Ramsay. The chef, already holding a piece of toast with surgical precision, flashed his trademark smirk. "What's this one?" he asked, eyeing the royal-looking label. "That," the host said proudly, "is Meghan Markle's new product. Launched just this week. Part of her new lifestyle brand. It's all organic, locally sourced. They say it's made with wild strawberries and hand-picked lavender." Gordon raised an eyebrow. "Really?" he said. "Sounds like someone's Pinterest board threw up." The audience chuckled. He wasn't trying to be cruel, not yet. The jab was typical Ramsay, cheeky, cynical, but within the bounds of good TV. He unscrewed the jar, sniffed it with exaggerated theatricality, and loaded a small spoonful onto the toast. And then everything changed. The instant the jam hit his tongue, Ramsay's expression shifted. His brow furrowed. His eyes narrowed. He chewed once, twice, then stopped. There was a pause. Not the kind that follows a delicious revelation, but the kind that precedes a verbal explosion. He turned to the hosts, lowered the toast, and dramatically spit the mouthful into a napkin. "Christ," he said, wiping his lips. "That's not jam. That's oversweetened royal slop in a jar." The host's smiles froze. "I mean, what is that?" Ramsay continued, holding the toast aloft. "You call that artisanal? It tastes like someone melted a strawberry lollipop in hot lavender tea and bottled the leftovers." There was a beat of stunned silence. No one in the studio had expected this. Not from Ramsay. Not on live television. Not about the Duchess of Sussex. But Ramsay wasn't done. "My grand-made jam," he said, staring directly at the camera now. "Proper jam. This is what you get when someone who's never stepped foot in a real kitchen decides they want a product line. It's fake, mass-produced, and insulting to anyone who knows what homemade jam is supposed to taste like." Within minutes, the internet exploded. Clips of the segment were clipped, captioned, and reposted on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. "Gordon Ramsay destroys Meghan Markle's jam," read one headline. "Royal slop goes viral," read another. The hashtag royal slop began trending before the segment was even over. Users were splicing together slow-motion reaction shots, adding dramatic music, and posting mock reviews of the jam using Gordon's quotes. The show's producers scrambled during commercial break, unsure if they had just witnessed a television disaster or struck ratings gold. Behind the scenes, frantic calls were made to legal, PR teams, and social media managers. They knew the clip would go viral. They didn't yet know the consequences. By the end of the day, the video had racked up over 30 million views across platforms. Opinion was split. Some viewers found the segment hilarious, vintage Ramsay, unfiltered and honest. Others were horrified. A handful of Meghan's loyal fan base began calling for a boycott of Ramsay's restaurants. They accused him of bullying, of targeting Meghan unfairly, of misogyny disguised as critique. But the overwhelming majority weren't debating Gordon's tone. They were questioning the product itself. Curiosity spiked. Everyone wanted to know, was the jam really that bad? Food reviewers and culinary bloggers rushed to order jars from as ever. Many discovered that the product was already sold out. A strange twist, considering the controversy. Some praised the jam, calling it sweet and floral, while others sided with Ramsay, describing it as overpoweringly perfumed and confusingly artificial. One reviewer bluntly wrote, "If this jam had a personality, it would be Instagram-filtered narcissism." The backlash wasn't limited to social media or food blogs. Retailers began to feel the pressure. Within 24 hours, a well-known upscale grocery chain in London quietly removed the jam from its online catalog. An insider leaked an internal memo that read, "Due to negative publicity and customer feedback, we are pausing further promotion of the product pending quality review." This was no longer a matter of taste. It was a full-scale branding catastrophe. And Meghan Markle, who had poured her reputation, creativity, and aspirations into the "as ever" label, was now associated with a phrase that mocked her efforts across the digital world: royal slop. What made the moment so devastating was not just Ramsay's critique, but the fact that it was live, unfiltered, and broadcast without warning. There were no rehearsals, no second takes, and no PR spin to catch it before it reached millions. In an era when celebrities carefully script even their apologies, this was raw, messy, and impossible to undo. For Gordon Ramsay, it was another day at the office. Brutal honesty was his brand. But for Meghan Markle, it was a hit from which her product line might never fully recover. And the fallout was just beginning. To understand the fallout of Gordon Ramsay's viral takedown, you have to first understand what was actually at stake. This wasn't just about jam. This was about identity, image, reinvention, and the high-stakes gamble of one of the world's most watched and polarizing public figures attempting to build a new empire. This time, not with tiaras or television scripts, but with taste, texture, and curated aesthetics. As Ever wasn't born in a boardroom. It wasn't even born in a kitchen. It was conceived, according to sources close to Meghan Markle, on a private deck overlooking a garden in Montecito. After months of reflection following her public split from senior royal duties, and after high-profile projects like the Oprah Winfrey interview, the Netflix docuseries, and the Spotify podcast, Meghan reportedly asked herself a simple but loaded question: what do I want to build next? The answer? A lifestyle brand that could rival the likes of Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, Martha Stewart's Empire, and the clean living trend embraced by millennial and Gen Z audiences alike. But Meghan's twist would be its refinement. No aggressive wellness advice or uncomfortable health claims. No scandalous celebrity gossip. As Ever would be a brand rooted in calm, elegance, and the understated sophistication Meghan believed she now embodied. The name itself was drawn from the sign-off of a letter, a detail her team emphasized in early press releases. It symbolized a return to form, a message of enduring grace. As Ever was meant to feel timeless, like a handwritten note on thick stationery. Each product, the brand promised, would carry that spirit, handcrafted, meaningful, and elevated. It was a lofty ambition, and it came with equally lofty expectations. Behind the scenes, As Ever was meticulously curated. Meghan assembled a team of brand strategists, former Hollywood publicists, artisan food consultants, and sustainable product developers. No corners were to be cut. The brand's aesthetic, muted tones, clean serif fonts, floral illustrations, and soft-focus photography was carefully selected to reflect a sense of privilege without pretension. It was as if the brand had been plucked out of a Cotswolds weekend fantasy and airlifted into California sunshine. But products had to lead the charge. A lifestyle brand could not survive on mood boards alone. The debut line would include a set of small-batch items intended to showcase care, craftsmanship, and, above all, taste. Among the offerings were lavender-scented candles, hand-woven linen napkins, and a trio of artisanal preserves. Of those, the strawberry lavender jam became the flagship. It was the one item Meghan reportedly had a direct hand in crafting, or at least, endorsing the recipe for. Promotional interviews and PR material described her personal connection to the product. She spent weekends in the test kitchen, experimenting with flavors, said one insider. She was insistent that it reflect her childhood memories of summers in California and her experience hosting guests at Frogmore Cottage. The narrative was tight, beautiful, and tailored for maximum emotional resonance. Meghan wasn't just launching a brand, she was inviting you into her world. A world of elegant garden brunches, handwritten thank you notes, and table settings you'd see in Vogue. The jam was a symbol of her transition from royal outsider to lifestyle mogul. And then Gordon Ramsay happened. But even before that viral moment, cracks had started to show, ones the public hadn't yet noticed, but the insiders had begun whispering about. Retailers who had previewed the line were concerned about production scalability. While the As Ever team promoted the jam as locally sourced and made in small batches, actual production was outsourced to a mid-tier bottling plant that serviced several luxury private labels. The fruit didn't come from Meghan's garden. The lavender wasn't handpicked by monks or artisans. It was all pre-processed, branded up, and shipped out. "Smoke and mirrors," said one food industry consultant familiar with the launch. It's not unusual for celebrity brands. But in Meghan's case, the marketing leaned so heavily on authenticity that the reality felt like a betrayal. To make matters worse, the price point of the jam was astronomical. Retailing at over $25 for a 6-ounce jar, it quickly became a symbol of tone-deaf luxury. Critics noted that Meghan's audience, those who supported her in her fight against royal tradition and championed her as a modern woman, may not necessarily align with a product line that screams elitism. Still, the marketing campaign rolled out with gusto. Lifestyle magazines ran flattering pieces. Meghan's friends posted unboxing videos. Carefully staged photos of the jam on marble counters flooded Pinterest. The website featured a short film, black and white, of course, of the jam being spread onto freshly baked scones as birds chirped softly in the background. The launch was successful at first. The initial stock sold out within days, thanks in part to Meghan's celebrity pull. But while orders climbed, so did questions. Taste testers and food bloggers who weren't beholden to publicists began offering mixed reviews. "The flavor's not bad, but it's a bit much," wrote one influencer. "The lavender is overpowering," said another. A YouTuber with a large following posted a blind taste test of 5 jams, as ever, ranked dead last. And then came the Ramsay review. To the public, the viral moment may have seemed spontaneous. But for Meghan's team, it was the unraveling of a campaign that had been teetering dangerously on a carefully constructed edge. Because, as ever, was never just about jam. It was about Meghan reclaiming her narrative. After stepping away from the royal family, she had often been portrayed as calculating, distant, or overly controlling. As ever, was designed to flip that script, to show her as creative, warm, nurturing. A brand with her fingerprints on every detail would prove her sincerity. It was her answer to every tabloid headline that painted her as shallow or opportunistic. But that's the trouble with lifestyle brands rooted in personality. They work beautifully when they succeed. But when they fail, the damage isn't just to the product, it's to the person. The deeper issue with As Ever was the authenticity gap. For all its elegance and storytelling, it wasn't quite real. And people can sense that. In a digital age where transparency reigns, and where younger consumers sniff out manufactured branding like bloodhounds, the illusion shattered quickly. Gordon Ramsay didn't just offer an opinion. He gave permission for everyone else to say what they were already thinking but didn't dare voice. That this was a product dressed up in royal wrapping, sold at a premium, and delivered without the soul that its packaging promised. It matters because Meghan Markle is not just a celebrity. She's a figure of immense cultural significance, standing at the intersection of royalty, race, feminism, and modern fame. Her every move is dissected not just for entertainment, but for meaning. A failed jam launch, in another world, would be a marketing hiccup. In Meghan's world, it was a referendum on her authenticity. And now, the question loomed large. If the jam was fake, what else was? For fans, it was a painful moment. For critics, it was vindication. For Meghan, it was a branding crisis. And for, As Ever, it raised a very uncomfortable possibility that its debut product, its very foundation, had just been publicly obliterated on live TV by a man who knows exactly what something should taste like when it's made with care. That's why As Ever matters. Because it was never just about a product. It was about the story we're sold, the truth behind the branding, and the fallout when the reality doesn't match the pitch. There are critics, and then there's Gordon Ramsay. To many, he is the embodiment of culinary excellence wrapped in a hurricane of fiery expletives and uncompromising standards. The star of countless cooking shows, the owner of a global restaurant empire, and a household name across continents, Gordon Ramsay has made a career out of tearing apart culinary mediocrity with surgical precision and theatrical flair. But beneath the bark and bravado lies a man whose standards were forged not on television, but in the unforgiving world of haute cuisine, where reputations are earned and destroyed on the edge of a knife. So when Gordon Ramsay spat out Meghan Markle's strawberry lavender jam and called it royal slop in a jar, it wasn't just a television stunt. It was, in his mind, a public service, a warning shot to the food world, a message to anyone trying to peddle pretense over product. But what drove him to go nuclear? It's important to understand the mindset of Gordon Ramsay before the moment. This wasn't the first time he had reviewed a product on air, and it certainly wasn't the first time he had made headlines for scathing remarks. From calling frozen shepherd's pie a dish of shame to walking off the set after tasting an amateur's risotto, Ramsay's threshold for culinary disappointment is notoriously low. But the as-ever jam hit a particular nerve, one that, to Gordon, wasn't just about taste. It was about principle. In interviews following the incident, those close to Ramsay revealed that he had been briefed on the products in advance, as per usual protocol. He knew Meghan Markle's jam was part of the tasting lineup. He was aware of the brand, had seen some of the promotional material, and according to a source in his camp, was already skeptical about the whole vibe. That skepticism, however, turned into genuine disdain once he took a closer look at the product's backstory. Ramsay, unlike many celebrities, is deeply involved in every aspect of his food ventures. He doesn't slap his name on labels. He doesn't lend his image to gimmicks. Every product, every plate, every restaurant is meticulously tested, refined, and personally approved. His restaurants have earned and maintained Michelin stars because he understands that quality is non-negotiable. And from that perspective, the as-ever jam represented everything he believed was wrong with the current wave of celebrity food brands. A pretty label, an overused buzzword about sustainability, a price tag that made little sense, and most importantly, no soul behind the spoon. He saw it as an insult to the craft, said a longtime producer who has worked with Ramsay for years. It wasn't just that it tasted bad, it was that it had the audacity to pretend it was good, to pretend it was artisan, when it was obviously something mass-produced and slapped with a luxury markup. Behind the scenes, Ramsay was reportedly livid that a product like that was being sold to the public under the guise of culinary sophistication. Sources say he tasted it off-camera before the segment began and immediately felt it was too sweet, with no real depth. He allegedly said, "This is perfume, not jam," before walking off to adjust the tasting setup. When the cameras rolled, Ramsay decided not to pull his punches. It was a decision that stunned even his crew. "He doesn't always go off script like that," said one assistant producer. But this time, he was actually angry. Not in a TV way, in a real chef way. You could tell he felt like this was a betrayal of food. That may sound extreme to the average viewer, but in culinary circles, Gordon's reaction was less surprising. The food world is deeply protective of its authenticity. Chefs spend years, decades, refining techniques, sourcing ingredients, and learning traditions. To them, food is culture. Food is memory. Food is labor. And when someone walks in with no training, no kitchen background, and tries to sell a premium product purely based on image, the backlash is swift and often brutal. Especially from someone like Gordon Ramsay. What made matters worse was the context. Meghan Markle, already seen by some as someone who had opted out of the royal grind but still capitalized on royal associations, was now presenting herself as a culinary authority. The as-ever campaign featured photos of rustic kitchens, sweeping garden shots, and captions about heritage and harmony. Yet behind it all, critics argued, was a manufactured product dressed up to look like something it wasn't. To Ramsay, that was unacceptable. It wasn't just about taste. It was about integrity. "You don't build a brand on lies," Ramsay reportedly said in a private meeting days after the segment aired. "And you don't take people's money for something that's essentially syrup in a jar." In a rare moment of public reflection after the firestorm, Ramsay was asked by a reporter if he regretted his comments. His response was telling. "I didn't say it to be cruel," he said. "I said it because people deserve to know what they're buying. I don't care who's selling it. If it's bad, it's bad." That statement reverberated across the food industry. Some chefs came to Ramsay's defense, praising him for defending standards. Others cautioned that his language could have been more measured. But one thing was clear. The food world had been watching the rise of celebrity brands with increasing discomfort. And Ramsay's explosion was the match to the powder keg. In private culinary forums, chefs shared their own experiences with influencers attempting to create food lines with no training. One pastry chef recounted being approached by a celebrity team asking her to develop recipes that look cute on Instagram but don't need to taste amazing. Another described being asked to replicate an aesthetic jam from a Pinterest photo, with no care for flavor profile or ingredients. "It's all optics now," one chef wrote. That's why Ramsay went off. He wasn't just tasting jam. He was tasting a symptom of what our industry is becoming. And that's what makes this moment so pivotal. It wasn't a feud between a chef and a duchess. It was a reckoning, a boiling point. For Gordon Ramsay, the moment was personal. For Meghan Markle, it was branding. For the world, it was a reminder that behind every curated image, there has to be substance or someone, somewhere, will call it out. In the end, Ramsay didn't launch a personal attack. He didn't mention Meghan by name. He didn't insult her directly. He let the product speak for itself, or rather, he let the product's flavor, or lack thereof, speak through his reaction. A reaction that millions saw. A reaction that couldn't be walked back. And a reaction that would trigger a cascade of consequences Meghan and her team clearly didn't anticipate. In the world of luxury products, perception is everything. For centuries, royalty has served not only as figureheads of national identity but also as powerful symbols of taste, refinement, and aspirational living. When a royal or former royal decides to put their name on a product, it's not merely a commercial decision. It's a declaration. A promise that what you're purchasing carries the weight of heritage, the polish of prestige, and the unspoken guarantee of excellence. That's what Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand has ever leaned on. Heavily. From the outset, has ever marketed itself with the poise of old-world elegance fused with modern consciousness. The logo was sparse but regal. The color palette was soft, minimalist, and reminiscent of luxury stationery from Windsor Castle. Even the brand's name evoked handwritten royal correspondence. And the product line, particularly the flagship strawberry lavender jam, was carefully introduced not as a food item, but as an experience. A message. A feeling. But while the aesthetics screamed royalty, the reality of the product raised troubling questions. What happens when branding leans on royal tradition, but the execution doesn't measure up? How far can the illusion go before it crumbles? And what does this tell us about the wider collision between aristocratic imagery and actual culinary craftsmanship? The truth is, as ever, was never built on taste. It was built on trust. The trust that Meghan Markle had cultivated as a public figure fighting against an archaic institution, as a woman redefining royal expectations, and as a symbol of elegance and empowerment. That trust extended into the brand narrative, that if Meghan was endorsing it, then surely it must be authentic, curated, worth it. But authenticity in the culinary world doesn't come from storytelling alone. It comes from the process, the ingredients, the technique, and most importantly, from the person behind the product knowing exactly what they're doing. By contrast, culinary professionals who later reviewed the As Ever jam pointed out something unsettling. It tasted like a product made by people who understood branding more than they understood food. Its sweetness was overpowering. The lavender, while aromatic, dominated the flavor profile to the point of distraction. There was no depth, no complexity. It lacked acidity, balance, or the nuanced texture expected from a luxury preserve. To the average consumer, these issues might seem trivial. After all, jam is just jam, right? But in the world Meghan Markle was trying to enter, the world of boutique food production, artisanal craftsmanship, and heritage flavor, the bar is set much higher. It's a world populated by culinary artisans who spend years perfecting recipes passed down through generations. For them, a jar of jam is not a business card. It's a legacy. The real problem wasn't that the jam was bad. It was that it claimed to be great, claimed to be something it wasn't. It wore the clothes of tradition and craftsmanship, but was mass-produced in a commercial facility using ingredients sourced in bulk. It marketed itself with poetic language about Montecito gardens and hand-blended batches, but production documents and sourcing information revealed a different story. And then there's the matter of the royal undertones. Even though Meghan and Prince Harry formally stepped back from senior royal duties in 2020, their brand has remained steeped in royal resonance. The very use of delicate script fonts, British garden imagery, and heritage-style packaging evokes the world they left behind, but still clearly benefit from. As Ever may not have said it out loud, but the message was clear. This jam is touched by royalty. Buy it. And you're not just buying a condiment. You're buying access to a feeling, a fantasy, a little piece of royal refinement. But in doing so, Meghan walked a tightrope. There's a difference between celebrating one's identity and commodifying it. Critics argued that As Ever veered dangerously toward the latter. By wrapping a subpar product in royal packaging, the brand created expectations it could not possibly meet. Gordon Ramsay's outburst wasn't just a critique of taste, it was a burst of the reality bubble. It was an industry titan shouting what many chefs and consumers were already whispering. The jam was a fraud cloaked in gold. And it wasn't the first time a royal-adjacent product faced scrutiny. Back in the early 2000s, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, faced backlash for her line of children's books and wellness products. Though well-intentioned, many criticized her for exploiting royal ties for profit. Prince Charles faced similar accusations with his Duchy Originals line, though his products, crafted with strict organic standards and long-term sustainability goals, eventually earned widespread respect. The key difference? Quality matched the image. That's what has ever lacked. A foundation. It also raises a broader question. Can someone trade on royal imagery and still meet modern standards of transparency, accountability, and authenticity? In Meghan's case, her brand leaned into every hallmark of premium branding: clean living, self-care, slow consumption. But the reality behind the scenes pointed toward a familiar corporate strategy: white label a product, mark it up, and tell a better story than the product itself can deliver. Once consumers figured this out, the backlash was swift. Reports began surfacing that, as ever, jam was manufactured by the same facility that produced other mid-market preserves, some of which retailed at a fraction of the price. There was nothing artisanal about it. One investigation revealed that the production process involved bulk fruit concentrate rather than fresh seasonal harvests, a far cry from the sun-drenched garden narrative used in marketing. For food purists and professionals, this felt like a betrayal. "You can't fake taste," said one food critic in a scathing column. "You can't brand your way out of bland." The ramifications were immediate. Orders were canceled. Reviews turned negative. Retailers distanced themselves. And Meghan's credibility, already fragile in the minds of some, took another hit. But the story doesn't end there. Because this scandal didn't just reveal flaws in Meghan's product. It exposed a broader crisis in celebrity culture. A growing frustration with public figures who attempt to build empires without putting in the groundwork. Consumers are no longer content with pretty faces and glossy packaging. They want integrity. They want transparency. And more than anything, they want the real thing. And that brings us back to the core tension: branding versus reality. Meghan's branding was immaculate. The jars looked like they belonged in a Buckingham Palace tea room. The story behind them was emotionally curated. The price suggested exclusivity, but the product couldn't keep up. And in the culinary world, unlike in Instagram photo shoots, substance trumps style every time. That's why Gordon Ramsay's critique was so devastating. It cut through the fog of image and exposed the emptiness beneath. It reminded people that food is not just about presentation. It's about heart, technique, experience. It's about honoring the process, not skipping it for the sake of aesthetic. The fallout from the jam debacle left a lesson that many celebrity entrepreneurs should heed. A powerful name can launch a product, but only a quality product can sustain it. As ever may survive the controversy. Meghan's team may pivot, rebrand, and reintroduce new items that better align with consumer expectations. But the damage has been done. The gap between royal branding and culinary reality has been exposed, and it will take more than a new flavor to close it. Because once the public sees behind the curtain, they rarely forget what they found. It started as a ripple, a brief clip surfacing on X, formerly Twitter, showing Gordon Ramsay's disgusted expression as he spat out Meghan Markle's jam on live television. Within minutes, that ripple turned into a wave. And before the morning was over, it had become a tsunami of digital chaos, outrage, and split loyalties that no one, not even the most cynical PR handlers, could have predicted. This wasn't just another celebrity product review gone wrong. This was a cultural flashpoint, a battle line, a digital referendum not only on Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand but on her entire public identity. People didn't just react. They chose sides. The clip itself was only 12 seconds long. But in that short window, Ramsay's words cut deeper than many 20-minute takedown videos. "This isn't jam," he said, staring deadpan into the camera. "It's oversweetened royal slop. My gran would be insulted by this garbage." The reaction was instant and electric. The first viral tweet said simply, "Gordon Ramsay just assassinated Meghan's jam on live TV. I'm screaming." It was accompanied by a screen grab of Ramsay mid-grimace, and within 3 hours had racked up over 300,000 likes and tens of thousands of retweets. Soon after, the internet did what it does best, turned rage into entertainment. Meme accounts lit up with new content. Ramsay's disgusted face was photoshopped into everything from Renaissance paintings to Game of Thrones scenes. One popular meme had him in the Great British Bake Off tent, flipping Paul Hollywood's handshake into a middle finger. Another reimagined him as a medieval knight slaying a dragon labeled as Everjam. Then came the TikToks. Users began reenacting the taste test at home, dramatically gagging over spoonfuls of red jelly while reciting Ramsay's line. Even those who didn't have access to the actual product joined the trend by parodying the reaction using random spreads from their fridge. One creator, wrapping herself in a blanket to mimic Meghan's brand aesthetic, said, "I made my own version of the royal jam. 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 of disappointment." Within 24 hours, the hashtag royal slop had reached over 100 million views on TikTok alone. But while the jokes soared, the reactions weren't all in jest. A fierce debate quickly erupted in the comment sections, forums, and op-eds. Was this just another case of internet bullying? Or had Gordon Ramsay exposed something bigger, celebrity culture run amok, where brand power trumps quality and narrative outweighs substance? Supporters of Ramsay were unapologetic. "He said what needed to be said," wrote one user on Reddit's r/cooking community. "We're living in an age where anyone with a title thinks they can charge $30 for a condiment. At least Ramsay has the guts to call it out." Another user wrote, "Imagine paying royal prices for a jar of sugar paste. He did us a favor." But not everyone agreed. On platforms like Instagram, many of Meghan Markle's defenders viewed the incident as more than just food criticism. It was, to them, another targeted humiliation in a long history of public attacks against a woman who had already endured a barrage of media abuse. "You don't have to like her," said one viral Instagram story posted by a Black female influencer. "But there's a difference between critique and public ridicule." That was performative cruelty disguised as expertise. Some pointed to Ramsay's history of targeting women on his shows, claiming this was part of a broader pattern of sexist commentary cloaked in culinary legitimacy. Others defended Meghan's entrepreneurial efforts, arguing that starting a lifestyle brand after enduring years of royal scrutiny was not only brave but commendable. "She's building something of her own," one comment read. "And just because it's not Michelin-starred doesn't mean it deserves to be publicly spat on." The clash turned personal. Some Twitter users began dredging up Ramsay's past controversies, his early career antics, his feuds with fellow chefs, and even awkward moments from his television shows. Conversely, Meghan's critics compiled montages of her past ventures, accusing her of consistently overpromising and underdelivering, from failed podcasts to polarizing interviews. Comment threads became battlegrounds. On YouTube, a creator who described herself as a royal commentator uploaded a reaction video titled, "Why Gordon Ramsay Was Right About Meghan's Jam," where she broke down the ingredients list and compared the jam to supermarket equivalents. The video amassed over 1.5 million views in 48 hours. Meanwhile, another creator posted a rebuttal video titled, "The Racist Undertones of the Jam Takedown," suggesting that the mockery aimed at Meghan was more intense because of her identity. This conversation escalated beyond Meghan and Ramsay. It became a flashpoint for broader themes: class, race, privilege, taste, and truth in branding. Political pundits and columnists entered the fray. Late-night comedians cracked jokes. Even international media picked up the story, framing it as a cultural clash between aristocracy and authenticity. Retail reactions added gasoline to the fire. One luxury food boutique, which had initially stocked as Ever Jam, released a carefully worded statement. "Due to overwhelming consumer feedback, we are temporarily removing the product pending quality review." It didn't mention Ramsay directly, but everyone knew what it meant. Meanwhile, some stores doubled down. An organic grocer in Los Angeles posted on their Instagram, "We believe in supporting women-owned, eco-conscious brands. We'll keep Meghan's jam on our shelves with pride." The post was bombarded with both praise and scorn. One comment read, "Thank you for not bowing to angry men." Another read, "Can I get a refund before your shelves rot from fake royalty syrup?" Then there were the real customers. Ordinary people who had bought the jam, often driven by curiosity or fandom, began sharing their experiences. Some described the product as pleasantly floral and Instagram-worthy. But more often, the feedback echoed Ramsay's sentiment. "Opened the jar, took a bite, and immediately regretted spending $28, one customer posted in a review. It's like eating strawberry perfume." The brand's social media pages became war zones. Every new post, whether promoting sustainable packaging or reposting photos of scones, was met with thousands of comments, some supportive, many mocking. Attempts to shift the conversation toward other, as ever products were quickly drowned out by waves of memes and Ramsay quotes. In an attempt to control the narrative, the brand disabled comments on several platforms. But by then, the damage was irreparable. This wasn't just a marketing crisis. It was a credibility collapse. And Meghan's silence spoke volumes. Days passed without an official statement. No video, no apology, no clarification. PR experts debated whether that was wise. Some argued that anything she said would only pour fuel on the fire. Others believed that silence implied guilt or avoidance. But the public filled that silence with speculation. Was Meghan retreating? Was the brand finished? Would she ever acknowledge Ramsay's critique? The story began to fade from headlines, but not from memory. Because while the internet moves quickly, certain moments leave scars. Ramsay's words were clipped into compilation videos, stitched into TikToks, and used as punchlines in countless comment threads. They became cultural shorthand for overhyped celebrity products that fail to deliver. Don't go full royal slop, one user warned in a startup branding group on Facebook. Even now, months later, the phrase lives on. And so does the division. For some, this was a moment of overdue reckoning. For others, it was just another ugly chapter in Meghan Markle's relentless public scrutiny. But for everyone watching, one thing was undeniable. 12 seconds of honesty created an earthquake, and no amount of curated branding could cover the cracks it left behind. As the media frenzy over Gordon Ramsay's takedown of Meghan Markle's jam reached its peak, another reaction, or lack thereof, captured just as much attention. The royal family said nothing. No official statement. No subtle public comment. No palace insider leaking a response through the usual media mouthpieces. Silence. But behind that silence, questions swirled. Was the royal institution quietly amused, privately furious, or strategically indifferent? And in a family that has long understood the power of appearances, was this calculated non-response its own form of messaging? In order to grasp the gravity of that silence, one must understand the historical context. The British monarchy has always operated on the principle of restraint. For centuries, their motto has been, never complain, never explain. When a scandal hits the family, whether it's Prince Andrew's controversies, Princess Diana's tell-alls, or Harry and Meghan's departure, the palace rarely responds directly. Instead, they deploy coded language, symbolic appearances, or, more often, carefully orchestrated absence. But Meghan was no longer a working royal, and that distinction changed everything. When she and Prince Harry stepped back from their roles in 2020, the agreement was framed as a clean split. They would no longer represent the crown, receive public funds, or perform official duties. In return, they could pursue their own private ventures. However, the palace made it clear, the titles remained, but the platform was gone. That didn't stop Meghan from continuing to build her public image around the aesthetic of royal elegance. From the fashion choices in her promotional shoots to the scripted refinement of the As Ever brand, echoes of Windsor were everywhere. And that may have been precisely what the palace disliked most. According to insiders who have spoken under condition of anonymity, Buckingham Palace had been monitoring Meghan's lifestyle brand closely since its soft launch. While they had no legal grounds to intervene, especially as Meghan and Harry retained the right to pursue private income, they were concerned about the optics. One senior aide reportedly said, "There's a line between personal freedom and brand exploitation." And some felt that line was already being crossed. When Ramsay's televised slam went viral, that concern turned into something else: vindication. Sources suggest that palace staff were well aware of the fallout in real time. Phones buzzed. Screens were refreshed. Some aides reportedly watched the clip during tea breaks and chuckled. But at the top, the reaction was different. King Charles, according to one courtier, maintained his characteristic calm. "His Majesty doesn't traffic in pettiness," the source said, "but he is deeply attuned to perception." And this incident confirmed a great deal of what he already believed. That belief, according to those close to him, was that Meghan's attempt to operate as a quasi-royal outside the monarchy's infrastructure was unsustainable. That trying to channel the elegance and trust of the crown without its discipline or scrutiny would eventually backfire. And so, the decision was made. Let the public see for themselves. While tabloids speculated about secret briefings and private ridicule, there is no evidence that the palace ever issued a directive regarding the jam scandal. What they did do, however, was more subtle. Scheduled public appearances for working royals were quietly adjusted. In the days following Ramsay's viral comment, Queen Camilla visited a local organic farming initiative. Prince William toured a food sustainability project in Oxfordshire. and princess and made a surprise stop at a culinary education center for youth. None of these appearances directly referenced Meghan's product, but all of them carried a quiet message. This is what real commitment to food, heritage, and community looks like. It was the monarchy's version of a subtweet. The contrast was not lost on the public. Commentators noted that while Meghan's jam was being mocked online, the remaining royal family was rolling up their sleeves, visiting actual farms and kitchens, and emphasizing substance over style. The silence became strategy. By refusing to comment, the palace ensured they could not be accused of pettiness or interference. And yet, their presence in the public sphere, particularly in food-related settings, suggested a deliberate move to reclaim credibility in a space Meghan was trying to occupy. For Prince William in particular, the moment was delicate. As future king and brother to Harry, he has always walked a tightrope between familial loyalty and institutional duty. Privately, aides say he has long harbored concerns about how Meghan and Harry's post-royal ventures might reflect on the family. According to one palace insider, there's a sense that William believes in earning public trust. He's uncomfortable with monetizing royal connection, especially when it lacks accountability. Whether he approved the food sustainability tour himself or simply welcomed the timing, it was clear that William was leaning into a message. The royal family's engagement with food and community wasn't performative. It was part of their work. And what of Harry? Caught in the middle, he made no public statements. But people close to him described the jam incident as deeply embarrassing. He was furious at Ramsay, one source claimed. Not because of the critique, but because of the tone. He thought it was unnecessarily cruel. But mostly, he felt helpless. It wasn't his brand, and he didn't want to look like he was defending bad work. Behind the scenes, the scandal reportedly intensified existing tensions between Harry and his extended family. One particularly stinging exchange, relayed through a mutual friend, involved a senior royal allegedly texting, "Now perhaps you see why we warned you." That warning, many believe, dates back to early conversations when Harry and Meghan first proposed launching their own ventures. The concern from the palace was always the same. Once you tie your identity to a product, you are no longer protected by royal protocol. You are open to scrutiny, mockery, and market forces. And that's exactly what happened. For the Crown, watching Meghan's brand falter under the weight of a celebrity chef's ridicule wasn't just schadenfreude, it was confirmation of a worldview. The monarchy may be rigid, bureaucratic, and archaic, but it knows how to manage reputation. Brands don't survive on image alone. They survive on consistency, duty, and credibility. Traits the royal family, for all its flaws, has spent centuries cultivating. And in that light, Meghan's jam wasn't just a failed product. It was a failed claim to an identity she no longer held and could no longer sustain without the infrastructure that once supported it. That's why the palace stayed silent. Because they didn't need to say a word. The world was watching. And the message was clear. In the chaotic aftermath of Gordon Ramsay's damning critique, the court of public opinion wasn't the only arena delivering its verdict on Meghan Markle's ill-fated jam. The retail world, arguably the most important battleground for any new product, responded swiftly and decisively. Behind the closed doors of glossy storefronts and boutique grocers, calls were made, emails drafted, and executive decisions rendered. And one by one, as ever, began disappearing from the shelves. For a product that had launched with a high-profile media blitz, celebrity endorsements, and a carefully curated aura of elite craftsmanship, the retreat was as rapid as it was brutal. The first sign came quietly. Within 24 hours of Ramsay's televised critique, a prominent UK-based premium grocery chain removed the strawberry lavender jam from its online store. No announcement, no explanation. A search for the product yielded a blank page and a generic error message. It was only when a consumer tweeted a screenshot of the missing listing, captioned, "Guess who got yanked faster than a royal RSVP," that speculation ignited. The chain was quickly flooded with inquiries. Was it pulled due to Ramsay's comments? Was it temporary? Was the product recalled? An insider at the retailer leaked the real reason to the press the following day. There was an internal directive to pause all as-ever promotions, the source revealed. The concern wasn't just public backlash. It was about product integrity and the risk of reputational damage. Our buyers were already raising eyebrows at the price-to-quality ratio. Ramsay's comments just pushed it over the edge. The leak sparked a domino effect. Over the next 72 hours, 3 more high-end retailers in the US and UK followed suit. Some removed the product from their websites. Others discreetly placed remaining inventory in clearance bins. One California-based organic store added a handwritten note near its as ever shelf, discontinued, local replacements coming soon. That note was posted to social media and went viral, fueling the narrative that Meghan's product was being ousted not only for quality concerns but in favor of authentic, community-rooted alternatives. It was the ultimate insult to a brand that had wrapped itself in the cloak of premium, personalized elegance. But the most telling blow came from a New York retailer known for its luxury gift baskets, frequented by celebrities and influencers alike. The company had planned to include, as ever, jam in its upcoming Mother's Day collection. The promotional materials had already been printed. Meghan's jar had pride of place in a photograph alongside a crystal vase, a cashmere throw, and imported French tea. Suddenly, the collection was delayed. Then, it was revised. The new photos featured a different jam brand entirely, one with no celebrity ties but a track record of awards and critical acclaim. The swap was subtle, but for those in the industry, the message was deafening. Trust matters more than fame. Emails obtained from a disgruntled supplier provided further insight into the chaos behind the scenes. "We cannot justify the risk," one executive wrote. "This is not just a PR issue. The product does not meet expectations, and consumers are vocal. We are not in the business of defending poor quality because of a name." In an effort to stem the tide, the As Ever team reportedly reached out to their top retail partners, offering steep discounts and updated talking points to reassure buyers that the jam's formulation was being reviewed and improved. One leaked email included the line, "We believe this moment offers an opportunity for growth and reinvention." But the retailers weren't interested in reinvention. They were interested in damage control. By the second week of the scandal, major online retailers began tagging the product as out of stock or currently unavailable. Requests for restock timelines were met with silence. Consumer inquiries on retail forums were met with shrugs. A few buyers who had purchased large quantities in support of Meghan attempted to return unopened jars. Some succeeded. Others were told that food items were final sale. Among independent sellers and boutiques that had once proudly promoted their affiliation with Meghan's brand, the tone shifted from celebratory to cautious. One small shop owner in Toronto told a local reporter, "We had customers coming in just to joke about the jam. It stopped being a product and became a punchline. We quietly pulled it because it was affecting everything else on that shelf." That comment, as blunt as it was, reflected a broader truth about consumer psychology. A single tainted product can contaminate an entire brand ecosystem. And the deeper the emotional marketing, the sharper the sting of betrayal. Meghan's branding campaign for, as ever, had leaned into storytelling at every level. The jam wasn't positioned as a mere food item. It was a sensory extension of her personal journey. The images were soft and soulful. The text spoke of gardens, quiet mornings, and inner peace. Every purchase was meant to feel like a connection. A piece of royalty wrapped in a sustainable package. But when the product failed to live up to that promise, the emotional investment boomeranged. Consumers didn't just feel disappointment. They felt duped. That sense of betrayal fueled a second wave of retail retreat. Several stores removed not only the jam but all As Ever products. Candles, linen napkins, herbal teas, all of it was either discounted or pulled outright. In private conversations, buyers reportedly expressed concern that any continued association with the brand could spark consumer backlash. "We're not in the business of becoming memes," one boutique owner said. Behind the curtain, panic set in. Multiple reports emerged of emergency meetings within the As Ever team. Internal communications pointed to a full brand audit. Consultants were brought in. Public relations advisors began drafting potential redemption campaigns. Ideas floated included a behind-the-scenes video of Meghan in the kitchen, partnering with respected chefs, and even a charity tie-in where proceeds from future sales would go to culinary education programs for underprivileged youth. But the damage was already done. A single product, the one meant to represent the heart of the brand, had turned the entire venture radioactive in the eyes of many retailers. And while a few stores attempted to hold the line, their support felt performative at best. One wellness-themed chain in California issued a statement that read, "We believe in the values behind As Ever and support their commitment to clean, intentional living." But just 2 weeks later, the product was removed, replaced with a sign that simply read, "New stock arriving soon." The collapse of retail support sent a shockwave through the business community. Investors, once enthusiastic about the potential of a Duchess-backed lifestyle empire, began asking hard questions. Sales projections were slashed. Expansion plans were paused. Rumors circulated that Meghan had personally called some high-level partners in an effort to salvage key accounts. No one confirmed those calls. No one denied them either. Meanwhile, Meghan's team reportedly considered rebranding the jam entirely, changing the flavor, the name, the label, perhaps even dropping the product from future lines. But insiders say the fear was that any move would look like an admission of failure. The brand was caught in a lose-lose scenario: keep the product and risk continued ridicule, or remove it and confirm the critiques. In retail circles, the story became a cautionary tale. At industry conferences and private panels, executives whispered about the Meghan incident in the same breath as other high-profile product failures. A trendy food CEO reportedly said during a pitch session, "It doesn't matter who you are. If your jam sucks, it sucks." The takeaway was brutal but clear. No brand, no matter how royal, famous, or beautifully packaged, can survive without the backing of real, verifiable quality. Retailers, perhaps more than anyone else, understood that truth. And so they acted, not out of spite or vengeance, but out of survival. They cleared the shelves. They rewrote their inventory plans. They moved on. And in doing so, they left Meghan Markle's as ever jam to sit alone in storage rooms and warehouses, an unsold emblem of what happens when branding outpaces substance. A symbol of aspiration, undone by execution. And a lesson in luxury, now marked clearance. In a live TV segment meant to be lighthearted, Gordon Ramsay took one bite of Meghan Markle's luxury as ever jam and spat it out on camera. Calling it royal slop in a jar, he torched the product's reputation in under 10 seconds. What followed was absolute chaos. Retailers dropping the line, memes exploding online, and Meghan's carefully crafted brand unraveling under public scrutiny. But was Ramsay just brutally honest, or did he expose something far more dangerous about celebrity brands built on image, not quality? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear goes far deeper than jam.